This we know for sure. You cannot badger someone into the vortex. You cannot humiliate someone into the vortex. You cannot punish someone into the vortex. In other words, the only way you can call someone into the vortex is, first of all, to be in there and to see them in a way that calls them in, you see. And so just wanted to get that in there, that sometimes we think you're too hard on yourself. So when you go to sleep at night, whatever's going on in your mind is what's going on. And then you manage to quiet your mind enough that you reemerge into non-physical. That's what your slumber is. Well, when you reemerge into non-physical, the non-physical part of you dominates. In other words, it's like joining that vibration that is really you. But the physical part of you, that active vibration of you, remains right where it was when you went to sleep. And when you wake up, you'll be right where you were. In other words, if you go to sleep in the vortex, you'll wake up in the vortex. If you go to sleep not in the vortex, you'll wake up not in the vortex. So one of the reasons that we teach meditation, we talked about it already here today, is that when you meditate and therefore you are awake, not asleep, and therefore conscious and therefore attracting, when you deliberately quiet your mind, you get to feel the visceral sensation of resistance leaving and alignment coming into place. That's why we encourage meditation rather than taking a nap. Because when you take a nap, you don't move your vibration. But when you meditate, you raise your vibration, and when you come out of meditation, your vibration is now in that higher place. So now let's get back to this vortex concept, because meditation is the way into the vortex. So however you got in there, now the next thing is to be consciously aware that you are in there. That is really a component to this seminar that we have not really discussed fully enough. We want you to realize that when you get in there, no matter how you got in there, milk it. Try to stay in there longer. Esther has been taking a deck of Money and the Law of Attraction cards because she likes the artwork so much. And when she knows she's in the vortex, she will milk it with everything she's got. Look through a deck of cards, look through a photo album of people that she loves. In other words, take a walk down memory lane. Sometimes they'll just stumble, or so it seems. There's never any stumbling because law of attraction is always accurate. But it feels like they've stumbled into a particularly appreciative moment. And the two of them will stop and just dissect what it is about this moment that makes this moment feel so good. Why is this room so appealing, Esther will say. Well, in this room, it's easy to identify. Look at these chandeliers. This is really an exceptionally beautiful meeting room. So, and as she walked in, she looked at them. She could not stop looking at them. In other words, they don't rattle when the air conditioning comes on. They are silent and yet beautiful. They give off enough light that everyone in the room can see everyone in the room. Enough light that the camera can pick up the images that it wants to comfortably. What is it about this room? It feels like a good size and a good shape. In other words, the platform is a little higher than usual, which gives a little better vantage point. The temperature in this room has remained right where they have asked them to hold it at 70 degrees because they find that to be most comfortable for most people. In other words, this is the reason that I like this room so much. This is the reason. These are the reasons. And as you focus with an eye to understanding why this feels so good, why does this feel so good? Now, often you find yourself not in the vortex wanting to define why does this feel so bad? What's wrong with this meal? What happened? What were they thinking? How could they have put this together? Who's in the kitchen? Who's minding the store? In other words, you can affirm from outside the vortex or inside the vortex. We just want to alert you to the benefit of doing 100% of your deliberate affirming or restating or practicing the vibration of, or making a vibration that's just active, making it longer active till it's dominant, then keeping it dominant till it's chronic, until it's the easiest vibration to find. In other words, practice yourself into alignment with who you are, and then begin to live life as you're viewing it through the eyes of Source. So, all the conversations that we have about everything are about blending these two worlds. In other words, we want you to know that you're non-physical, but we want you to be proud that you're physical. But we want you to know what in the vortex feels like, but we want you to not be mad at yourself for being not in the vortex. We want you to accept that it all meshes together, and that without step 1, there couldn't be step 2 or 3. In other words, without being out of the vortex, there would not be the expansion. And if there isn't the expansion, then there isn't life. See how it all fits together? So don't you want to just start making peace with it? Don't you want to make peace with those rascals in your neighborhood rule-making society? Don't you want to make peace with them? Don't you want to bless them for the better world that they are creating with their harassment? Seriously. Don't you want to appreciate the contrast? Because without it, the new idea couldn't be born. And without the new idea, you couldn't continue to be. We couldn't either. And without the new idea, there wouldn't be expansion. Without expansion, we would all cease to be. Don't worry about it. That can't be. But getting it all fit together in your mind, don't you just love contrast? You do when you go to the buffet. When you go to the buffet, you love contrast. You're glad that that president of that committee isn't the only one that got to choose the food. You're glad. You're glad. You're glad that there's variety. And when you see things you don't want, you just don't put them on your plate. At the buffet, you don't have any problem with contrast. You just become a very deliberate, selective sifter. But in this world of thought, you say, oh, that thought hurts me. That observation hurts me. And since I have no ability to focus other than upon what's right in front of me, then we need to destroy that and that and that. And we say, how is it working out?
Not so well.
Not that well.
Not that well.
It is so satisfying to become the deliberate focuser that you were born to be by following the emotions that are within you that will always lead you to the furthest, most expanded place, you see. And really, we want to say to you in a really gentle way that it is easier to be in the vortex than not in the vortex, but it doesn't seem that way if you've been practicing a vibration that's been holding you out. But it's much easier, and you know how we know? Because this is who you are. This is the eternal you. This is who you will return to. In other words, this is the main event. This is the big story. You're here in this body creating that which is the non-physical version of you, which is always moving forward. Now hear this. We haven't said this before either. You get the cycle of life that we've been describing. You were non-physical energy, and then you became physical, and then you sifted and sorted, which caused you to launch rockets of desire, and the source energy part of you became it, and it is from that vantage point that you come forth again. So can you hear us when we say clearly to you that things that you're doing as an individual or as a collective consciousness in this life experience are causing the next life experience to get queued up? The world into which the babies are being born was created long before those babies came forth. In other words, that's this continual cycle of life, you see. And the larger part of you is always standing at the furthest advanced, furthest evolved, furthest joyous, expanded state of being. And you all can't stand it unless you're up to speed with that. And yet, those are the wrong words, because you have figured out how to stand it. Because you're willing to put up with discouragement. You're willing to feel diminished. You're willing to feel angry or overwhelmed or fearful. You're willing to feel it. But just know that when you feel fear, that little fit you're throwing is because the larger part of you isn't going there with you. Isn't that good to know? It's interesting. Human seems to think that as he walks with each other, that in his disapproval of so many things, he will be left with a piece of something that he can approve of. As if I could push hard enough against unwanted things, I could obliterate them, and then in all of the absence of all of the unwanted things, there would be wanted. And we say, it could not be more opposite. It's out of those unwanted things that is born the wanted. Then it's up to you to focus, because you can have it either way for a while. You can have it either way for the time you're in this physical body. You are so free, you can choose bondage. You are so free, you can choose thoughts that feel awful. You are so free, you can be miserable for a while. But when you croak, that's all over. So if you're enjoying, and you're not, the misery that you've found, then make hay while the sun shines, because when you croak, it's all over. You know that you are creators, yes? Yes. or you would like to be. You are creators. In fact, as you are sifting through the variety that surrounds you, that we call contrast because it has broad ranges, some of it wanted, some of it not wanted, some of it really not wanted, some of it really wanted. As you sift through the variety of what surrounds you, you are focusing the larger part of you into an expanded, evolved version. So you are creating. Oftentimes, as you are here in these physical bodies, you don't even realize that that part of your creation is happening, because in your human body, most of you are only wanting to take score about what is already manifested. So you're willing to talk about the creation of a relationship, or the creation of an empire, or the creation of a physical condition. Sometimes you're willing to do that. But it is a rare one of you who understands the creation that is going on a vibrational level that precedes all manifestation. And that's the creation that we mostly want to talk about today. You are offering vibration because you are focusing. You can't not focus. And in every moment that you are focusing, whether you are reminiscing about the past, whether you are exploring something in your present, or whether you are speculating into the future, every time you focus, you establish a vibrational frequency that is creative in nature. Most of all, it's attractive in nature. And by that we mean you send out these vibrations that are being responded to by a universal manager that we are calling law of attraction. And law of attraction brings back to you, gives you constant feedback of that which you are emanating vibrationally. Now, oftentimes you're emanating stuff all over the place. You say, I want this, which is an emanation of a vibration. But then you offer an equal, proportionate, sometimes greater counter vibration that says, but it's not here, or I can't figure out how to do it. So you're offering vibration all over the place, and that's what we call creating by default. You're doing it because you can't help but do it, but you're not doing it deliberately. Deliberate creating is offering vibration deliberately, which means thinking on purpose, which means thinking and then having some way of measuring the thought. And that's what trips so many of you up, because since you've been so enthusiastic about the manifestations, but since the manifestations are post-manifestational indicators, since mostly you are doing your evaluating of how you're doing by looking at what you've already done, you're sort of behind the process. You get a sense of what we're talking about? If you are only examining what's manifested, then you are really living in the past. Even if it just manifested, you're really living in the past, because long, well, it doesn't have to be so long, but it often is. You've been putting these vibrations out there, and law of attraction has been assembling the cooperative components. But if you are using your eyes and ears and so on to explore how you're doing, it would be like driving your vehicle down the road and only looking in the rearview mirror. It's not a good idea. Oh, look, I ran over that, I ran over that, I ran over that, I ran over that. In other words, not our idea of deliberate creation. But if you become aware of vibration, if you will pay attention to the vibration that you're offering, and the only way that you can pay attention to vibration, because you can't see it yet, it hasn't manifested, is by feeling the vibrational frequency of it, and you do 100% of that through your emotions. Your emotions let you know how you're doing. We have enjoyed this interaction immensely. It has been leading edge all day long, going to new places that not only you, but no one has been before. Exhilarating to find these new vibrational places. And the most exhilarating part of it all for us is not just the finding of the place. You see, your life, as it presented the issue or the problem or the situation, produced an equivalent solution that you were all kind enough to guide us to as we all took your bounce together. Did you see how that works? There is great love here for you. And as always, we remain eternally, never-endingly in the vortex.